My crying doesn't actually mean that I'm like done with this conversation or that I can't be a part of, whatever we're working through or whatever we're discussing. I've had to start saying like, I'm still here. I'm still thinking, I'm still capable, like I'm still present in this moment. One association is like, oh, like here come the waterworks, there she goes, like there's no coming back from this. Fostering connection through vulnerability, the People Pleaser podcast validates struggles, celebrates growth, and inspires positive change. Together, let's embrace authenticity, challenge patterns, and evolve with compassion. Hello and welcome to the People Pleaser podcast. It's Corey. Today's episode, I am coming into this episode with a somewhat recent review in mind that I actually just happened to see this morning. It's on Apple iTunes, or what is it called? Apple Podcasts. And the review basically says that this podcast is just a bunch of blah, 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 and that there's not like any real depth to the conversation. And what a wild piece of feedback to get, because for starters, like, I get it. I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And a lot of this is like me just in that free flow, conversational, like, y'all, I'm talking to myself here. Like, I'm talking to you, but it's all me carrying on this conversation. The other piece is that these are sort of areas that I want to improve. I want to expand on. I want to further develop. And so in that sense, I almost appreciate the call out. I appreciate the opportunity to take that feedback in and be like, if that's how that person is receiving me, then I do want to just be aware of that and see if there isn't ways that I can hit a little bit better for more people, because ultimately that is the goal. I know that I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, nor do I ever want to be, nor do I ever want to try to be. But if people are coming to find my podcast, they're likely looking for something helpful, something educational, something validating. And I do hold that closely to my heart and to the very intention that I originally set out with, and that is to build this community based around support and sharing and basically just validating the people-pleasing and overarching mental health experiences. So to that soul who gave me that feedback, it has been received. You won't change me because only I can do that, but it has been heard, and I'm going to take today's episode as an opportunity to address it in ways that make sense to me. And basically what that really, really looks like is that I've built a little bit of structure to this episode. And I've resisted this because, I don't know, I think this stems from having just anxiety around getting things right or wrong, or doing things right or wrong, and having this rigidity to what's meant to be kind of just stream of consciousness, free flow, very real, very authentic. But I do want to experiment more, because I have tried it a few times in a few different episodes, but I want to experiment a little bit more with having a plan for where I want to go and what it is that I want to offer. So today's episode, I am going to be talking about emotions, because Lord, I have been full of emotions lately. And it's been really important for me to find a little bit of a reframe with my emotions or for my emotions. And I don't necessarily want to let these emotions be seen by myself or others as a weakness. I want to use them and see them and acknowledge them as strength and be able to advocate for my emotions. So let's get into it. My emotions, your emotions are not a liability. These are not something to get rid of because these are actually some of our greatest strengths. I've for so long seen my emotions as being incredibly inconvenient. I've seen them as being unprofessional. I've seen them as being embarrassing. I don't want to be crying in the middle of a meeting, like the meeting we had with our accountant. I don't want that. That's not the brand that I feel the most aligned with or the most excited about or the most proud of. There's always been a part of me that wants to be a bit more stoic, a bit more held together, a bit more professional. But I'm realizing that there's more going on in those moments than just me being emotional or me crying or, whatever that kind of judgy perception might be. So today I want to explore how emotions, especially in my case, tears, because that is a leading indication is when my eyes start to well up. I know that we're going somewhere. But I want to explore how these emotions, or just emotions in general, have actually become a huge source of insight and connection for me. Similar to kind of what I was just sharing, for a long time, I treated my emotions like they were interruptions. They were something that I needed to push down or push away, hide, mask, so that I could just get on with it. I could just be present in the meeting, take in the information, have a response, just be productive, just come on, work through it, move past it. And over time, I've started to notice that some of my most honest and clarifying moments have come because I've been emotional. And it's almost these emotions, these tears, this energy that takes shape in my chest, they're like a guiding light, or they are communicating something important to me. They're my compass, my North Star, whatever analogy or metaphor you want to use. I'm learning that I need to be paying attention to these cues, because these are cues that are literally coming from within. It's a direct, response to my outer world from my inner world. And it's hard because when I cry, people can sometimes assume that I'm losing control, or I'm checked out, I'm lost, it's over, game over, here come the waterworks kind of thing. And that's actually not at all what my internal experience has been. Because for me, my tears, they don't just represent sadness. I've cried because I've been overwhelmed. I've cried because I'm extremely happy and excited, inspired, and when I've been sad or grieving or depressed or feeling lost. So my tears, or my experience of tears, have been within a whole host of different emotional experiences. And I've noticed that when I cry, it's usually because something has actually touched me deep. It's triggered something, it's woken something up within me, and it's something that I typically need to sit with a little bit longer. And whether that's some deeper reflection or just taking a break from the conversation, it's just okay, my body is communicating that a chord has been struck. And in my marriage, for example, I know that it can be really uncomfortable at times for my husband when I'm crying. His experience, with this type of emotion isn't exactly relatable. He is not someone who has this sort of primary response where, he's crying or, tapping into that sadness. Sometimes with my sadness and my tears, I like go deeply inward. And so I can see that my tears can make my husband in this case, but others uncomfortable. And I've had to get a little bit more comfortable explaining that my crying doesn't actually mean that I'm like done with this conversation or that I can't be a part of, whatever we're working through or whatever we're discussing. I've had to start saying like I'm still here. I'm still thinking, I'm still capable, like I'm still present in this moment. Because I think one association is like, oh, like here come the waterworks, there she goes, like there's no coming back from this. And I'm learning that like sometimes, yes, I need like a little bit of time or I need a little bit of a pause, but like usually my tears indicate like, no, I'm actually very, very in this moment. I'm very, very present, but I'm like tapping in to a pretty deep layer. I've also been learning what's actually going on in my body when I feel these big emotions. It's not just in my head. I am like getting these signals that my nervous system has been activated, that maybe my hormones are shifting. My brain is processing something important. So it's not just like, oh, the waterworks. It's like, no. Things are communicating, like things are moving, and we should be paying attention to that. I find that crying is actually an amazing release physically. It's a way that my body can kind of like clean the slate, like clear the palette and just reset. And I actually often feel a lot calmer after I've like had a little bit of a cry. And just like, I think so much of the time too, like the hardship lies in trying to suppress the tears, trying to choke them back, trying to hold them in. But God, is there like anything better than just like letting it out and having a good cry? But I do know, like, I can fully recognize that I am more likely to cry or feel emotional when I'm tired or stressed or like already carrying a lot on my plate. And that has been like kind of a persistent state that both my husband and I have been in lately. We have so much on our plate. And so I just keep kind of articulating this overwhelm, like I'm feeling overwhelmed. And that often looks like tears or having this emotional response. I almost think it's like a beautiful like symbol of like I have so much going on inside and these tears are like helping me externalize it. Like physically the tears are like pouring out from within. And I just think that's like pretty cool. It's pretty beautiful. I think it's kind of also interesting to think of like our emotions as data. Like, okay, I'm gathering data. What are like, let's sort through this. Let's sift through what all this means. My emotions, they're just signals. Like they're just like, okay, hey, we're talking. They're telling me like this matters or pay attention here, but it's not necessarily telling me like you need to act on this emotion. You need to do something in this moment. Like it doesn't mean that like this emotion has to have like feet and legs. It can just be like, okay, we have eyes, we have ears, we're seeing, we're listening to these emotions. But I don't actually have to like act upon the emotions. I think is like another really important thing to remember is that we can just kind of let them be and like let them out without needing them to be bigger than what they might actually represent. I also think it's like really important or really interesting to pay attention to like what the different emotions that you're experiencing mean. So if you are feeling frustration, it might mean that a boundary has been crossed, or joy. It tells me that I'm in a place that's like good for me. Like, yeah, I want to be here. And like these tears, this emotion is like a positive expression. Sadness, that can tell me that I'm like, there's something missing, like a value, a person, like there's something that maybe feels like a little bit out of line. And so it's not just like the physical expression, but it's also those associated emotions that can come with the tears in this example. When I feel a strong emotion, I would say this is an area that I'm still really trying to nurture and develop, is like when I'm feeling the emotion, I can still go pretty inwards for a while. I feel like I take my time really sitting with that. In my marriage, for example, like I'll spend time like weighing out like, okay, maybe I was activated or triggered by this, but like that wasn't the meaning, or this is where maybe I'm like kind of holding on to things a little bit too tightly. But I'm just trying to like at least pause as as a starting point, is pausing and trying to like name what is that emotion that's coming up for me. And yeah, like I said before, lately the feeling has been overwhelm. But that feeling of overwhelm has also led to like feeling stressed, feeling burnt out, feeling I'm being rushed into making decisions, things like that, feeling like I'm sacrificing certain things because like my plate feels so full or my brain feels so full. Actually naming it, and if you can name it and like share that with someone, especially if that's like somebody that you're in conflict with, that is so powerful. Like, I'm just feeling really frustrated right now. I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling misunderstood. And one thing that I've like really been getting better at least, is to speak to my tears, like, and to give that reassurance, like, yes, I'm crying, but I'm still present and I'm thinking clearly. Like, crying doesn't just write me off. I am still here, but I'm also having this like emotional response, and these things can all happen at the same time in different probably scenarios in our life and with different people's perspectives and what we were raised watching. If you were around a lot of anger in your household, like, anger can be so loud and so big and so overpowering that it feels like it's all about the anger right now. Like, everything, like, it's just like a hostile, angry environment. I know for me growing up, like when my mom was angry, or even if she was like sad, like that triggered a silent treatment from her. And so it felt like, we were walking on eggshells because like my mom was giving us the silent treatment. And, I don't fault her for that. And honestly, that's unfortunately something I have inherited in some ways, where it's just this feeling that like I need to go be alone with this emotion and I'm not ready to come out of it yet. And so I can still go to that place, and sometimes that can feel productive. Like, if you can really acknowledge, like, I am not really ready to communicate. I'm not really ready to like be with someone in this emotion. I still think there's an opportunity to communicate. And just, I did that last week. I said, we were kind of not fully in alignment, my husband and I, and the conversation felt like it was just not really getting like to a productive place. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to go for a walk. And I didn't make it like a 2-hour walk, or, like it wasn't like this big statement. It was like a 30-minute walk. And that was like the perfect amount of time for just like the energy to shift for both of us. And for me, like what was really important in that moment was to not be like slamming doors, to not be huffing and puffing, to not walk out without saying something. Because I've been there, I've done that. But to just be like, I'm frustrated and I'm just going to go for a walk and just like walk it off. There are definitely ways of calming your body and just like recentering, getting back to yourself, right-sizing that emotion, or allowing enough time to pass for that emotion to feel safe in our bodies and safe for other people. For me, like a lot of the time it is movement. It's like going for a little bit of a walk or doing a little bit of a workout, but it could look like a breathing exercise or a different grounding exercise, just to like not totally check out, but to not like just sit in this like unproductive kind of stewing place of emotion. When I think about you, my listeners, my community, I'm curious, when have your emotions or even your tears pointed towards something important? And has that been your experience? Because that's kind of where my mind is going towards. It's like, these are usually a pretty important indicator. And I'm wondering if that's been your experience, and how do you know that? Can you think of a moment when you felt quote unquote too emotional and later realized it was actually a sign that you were onto something meaningful? And like, what was that? And what does that feel like? Where does that show up in your body? For me, like, that is just right in the middle of my chest. And it's like a pressure, but it's also like a fluttery feeling of just like anxiety, just like kind of sitting there. And I think that's that emotion just being stored there and needing to be released. So obviously, like, crying when we're meeting with an accountant was embarrassing, felt a little bit silly, felt like, oh boy, here I go again. But I do see it as just a part of this like emotional fluency, a sign that I'm connected, very deeply connected to what matters, even when it may be in unexpected or inconvenient places. And I want to stay true to that. I want to stay true to myself. I want to stay like embodied. I want to be listening to these emotions. I want to be able to notice them. And I want to be able to just like honor them with the proper process of like, processing them. Like, not just crying and then like being like, oh, well, I'll just deduce that to me, like making a fool of myself. It's like, no, what was going on? What's behind those tears? Like, what led you to that place? Like, what, for me, it was like there was so much leading up to that appointment. There was all these other things going on. And what actually happened in that appointment is the accountants validated my husband and I. They validated how much we were going through and how much we had on our plates and the challenges. And in those, like in that moment with that validation, it was just like a flood, like it just like the floodgates opened and it was a release. It was like, thank you for seeing me. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for holding this safe yet unexpected space for us and for these emotions to be able to like no longer be caged up inside of me, and I can just like now let them go and kind of have a little bit of a giggle about it. Honestly, like we felt so held and so seen and so heard, and it was like kind of joyful after that. Like, yeah, we want to continue working with you. This feels awesome. Our emotions are not weaknesses. They are a language. And the more fluent we become, the more powerful they are, and the more powerful we are. This felt really important to start talking about. This is like truly somewhere that I'm actively on this path of finding more acceptance in my emotions, seeing them as a strength, seeing them as information that is like really worth listening to, learning more about, being curious about. So I do hope this has triggered, a bit of reflection around your relationship to your emotions and the ways in which you are honoring them, and maybe the ways in which you're still trying to tamp them down or suppress them. And I just think like the closer we move to just like showing up authentically in a way that like you would look back on and be like, yeah, that was the right thing for me. And that's what I needed to do to be the most in alignment, the most true to myself. That's it. So some might think that I was just blabbing on again. And you know what? That's kind of what podcasts are. We're just blabbing. And to me, this felt helpful for my own self-reflection. And all I can do is just keep putting out love, kindness, offers of support, and I'll be doing myself proud, if anything. So thank you for being here, and I will catch you on the next episode. Mwah. Once again, this is Corey with the People Pleaser Podcast. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast. If you like what you heard, please consider leaving a 5-star rating and a review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode.